Alex, Patrick. Tell me, Patrick, about you. Where are you from? How did you get into Operation Spark?
I'm from here. I'm Patrick Henry. I'm 22 years old, born and raised in New Orleans. I got into Operation Spark from another graduate, Blau Hankins. We went to
I know.
high school together,
Yeah.
and I was like, I got out of college because I realized I was going into advertising, and it wasn't necessarily, it was advertising and graphic design, and I realized it wasn't the industry for me.
Yeah.
But I think that, so I was like, just working and looking for something else to do, and I got into it with Cameron, and we started together because we all went to high school together, and went to the program. I was like, I'll just do prep. It's free. It's it's there, and I'm not doing anything else. Started up, and I really just fell in love with the problem solving aspect of it. I felt that it was really intellectually challenging, which is something that I was missing with advertising.
Right.
It was just like a whole new world where it felt like I could express what I was thinking on the screen, or in making sure that like it was just a whole new way of thinking that I never explored before. That really
I like the way you said that. Express. It's an interesting way of saying. Like when I hear people use those kinds of words about coding, I really appreciate it because it is an expressive thing, and I don't think people often see the eloquence of what you're doing when you're coding. You do, and your mates do, but the end user just sees buttons and magic going on.
Right.
So it's kind of like, but I like that way of, the way you express that. That's cool.
And I feel like it's also hard to even like explain it to other people because like how concrete you, or I guess how, I don't know how to say it exactly, but how you have to express what you want it to do is like, I want to say it's like so finite with all the work, like what you like. This is a const, this is a let, or like even those, like even just like initializing a variable, you need to be very strict with how you're just how you're like writing the program, because it will come back to bite you if you don't.
Alex, tell me about you, man. Where are you from? And then how did you find your way into the program?
Yeah, my name's Alex Hebert. I'm from Luling, Louisiana, which is right up the river from New Orleans.
Okay.
I went to college at Louisiana Tech up in Ruston for biomedical engineering. And in that first series of classes for all the engineering there, you end up programming a little robot. And I just fell in love with coding there. My older brother went to Operation Spark in 2019, Adam Hebert.
Yeah, Adam. Yeah. Now I get it. Yeah, yep, I see it.
And so he recommended it to me because I was having a lot of trouble in college with, not feeling very satisfied with the work I was doing.
Yeah.
And came to Operation Spark and was really hands-on and really, really loved the program through and through.
Yeah, and so you guys started out with prep. It's the intro class. Had you had any coding experience? You had a little bit, you said, in college, and you must have a little bit too with like HTML design, stuff like that.
I went through a couple like Code Academy courses, HTML, CSS, and I think maybe in 6th grade we might have done a Bootstrap app, but I could not even remember what we would have done with that.
Yeah,
that's probably all the experience I've had.
Cool. And then what happened in boot camp? How did you feel once you got to boot camp? Was there some stuff you're starting to wade into some murky waters with functional programming and higher order functions and recursion and all that kind of stuff? How did you guys tackle that? How did you feel about it?
So I had done a lot of programming with Python.
Okay.
In college, so
cool.
I felt pretty at home in boot camp. Just a little. I don't think they were. JavaScript and Python are too far off.
Yeah. I mean, one's more object oriented, and one is a functional kind of idiom. So closure is an importance thing a way of designing things, and when you have JavaScript. So yeah. And then what about the schedule of like going, you guys started out 4 days a week, 3 hours a day basically, and it kind of started to ramp up. How did you feel when you got to like the junior phase and you were, deep end all day, 6 days a week, 11 hours a day for those 6 weeks? How did that go for y'all's?
Yeah, I definitely think for me it was definitely a struggle. I mean, even boot camp was a struggle for me. Some of the concepts, like starting out with boot camp, I think some of the concepts like scopes and closures I didn't really get.
Yeah.
I had to repeat it.
Okay.
But I really ultimately think that it was better for me.
Yeah. Yeah.
Making sure that I was like re-initializing those in my mind and like making sure that I got all of it, I think really gave me a good foundation to go into junior.
Yeah.
Because with junior, like having the 2-day sprints, you really need to have that baseline that allows you to move a little bit faster. I think that, and I also repeated junior as well. So I think those are the two probably hardest for me. Just because they have the biggest workload, and then also a lot of concepts that you may not always get to touch as much as you probably need to.
Yep.
But yeah, I think that they're both really foundational for me, like actually understanding what was expected of me and what is expected of my code, and making sure that I have quality enough that it's that it is good enough for like a production app or so.
Yes, sir. How about you, Alex?
I don't think I realized that I was going to be working on Saturdays for junior until like a couple days before. No, he left it a surprise, I guess.
Adam.
So
is he older than you or younger? Yeah.
He's older.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah.
But
And where's he at now?
He's at Revelry.
Okay. Yeah.
The shop here in New Orleans.
Yep. They're a developer shop, dev shop. Awesome. Yeah. Okay. And then, like, what were some of the more tricky concepts during any part of the program that you guys had to kind of hurdle over? I mean, I know the time constraint and the time constraints and getting things in on time, and the schedule of junior especially is pretty intense. Seniors kind of the same schedule, but it's not. You don't have the same kind of. There's deadlines, but it's not every hour, basically, deadline like junior is. So what were some of the technical concepts that you guys had to kind of, something that, or even something that just clicked for you that was like, this is awesome. Was there something that you fell in love with about programming, some of the more advanced stuff? What about you, Alex?
The biggest challenge I think I faced was the understanding the different types of inheritance patterns.
Okay. Yeah.
And like
remembering pseudo-classical stuff.
Right.
Yeah.
And remembering what the names are, the differences and the pros and cons of each. I felt that was very, very hard, but I feel like I got the hang of it after doing bees. Yeah.
And what about like when you got to TypeScript, did it start to make more sense, like the class, like a class-oriented way of coding or an object-oriented way of coding?
Yeah, TypeScript definitely cleared up all of that confusion.
Yeah.
Because, I mean, I used Python before this, which is also dynamically typed.
Yeah.
So thinking about types was something I really didn't do until using TypeScript. Right. And I definitely feel like I have a bit better grasp on that.
Yeah. But it's also, with TypeScript, it is class-oriented. Even though it's a wrapper on top of JavaScript, you're still organizing your objects in terms of classes and subclasses and interfaces and inheritance and things like that are part of the ecosystem at that point. And your coding framework, basically, at that point. So, yeah. What about you?
I think that definitely I like that classes were also hard for me. I think that subclass dance party was the only time I really actually got it. Because I realized, the super, I need this super class for this, and it just like felt jumbled until like that's the only way that you can. I feel like you can get through subclass dance party is with understanding that when methods are passed down and which method is actually on the class or if you need to use the super class. I think also that a lot of like I think N Queens really
Yeah, that's a tricky one.
made me struggle
Yeah.
because I think that I've never thought so abstractly before without actually like seeing what's happening.
Yeah.
Like creating the helper function is like obviously like one of the easier parts, but then making sure that you're checking all which queens are where on every iteration.
Yeah.
That was the part that was really hard for me because I couldn't see it, and I couldn't see it in my mind either.
Yeah.
I think that was part of it, and I think that like along with that, along those lines, also was toy problems were also something that I really
Yeah.
struggled with because it's also really abstract.
Right.
I think that the struggling through each one of those problems though made me like realize I need to break it down into steps,
Yes.
and that's
yeah.
what has
Yeah.
helped me even write an app out is that breaking down everything into steps is probably the most important thing because even then like that's how computers work. They don't
Right.
they don't just do the whole thing at once.
Right.
They need different functions and you call them in order, and that's
Yep.
what
Command
really
by
is
command. Yeah.
yeah.
Yeah. And so just for the YouTubers at home, people that might be watching this on YouTube that don't know N Queens, or it's an algorithmic problem that you're trying to solve, but can you describe a little bit about what that challenge was or that problem was that you had to solve?
So in Queens, basically the whole sprint is about trying to find how many rooks or queens can fit on a chessboard without I guess two rooks being able to see each other or two queens being able to see each other.
Right.
Making sure that the major and minor diagonals are correctly oriented, making sure that your columns and rows are also clear of any other rooks or queens.
Right.
And then it increases in difficulty when you add more
Queens or
more I guess squares or rows or columns to the board.
right.
And I think that was like really hard. The diagonals were also really hard for me because like I struggled with how trying to explain it to my partner at the same time. So I think that was partially the struggle for me was that like I've played chess before, but it was like also like trying to explain it to somebody else at the same time. It made me understand it more.
Yeah. Cool.
And for that sprint, we were given a grid with just numbers on it. And
Yeah.
it said, these are the diagonals.
Yeah.
And that made no sense to anybody at first. And
Yeah.
so it was a real challenge to try to figure that one out. But then once it clicked, it felt so satisfying to really understand what you're looking at. For sure.
Yeah. And so that was a sprint. It was basically a 2-day problem you had to solve. But throughout junior, you guys have, well, I guess throughout junior and senior, you have toy problems. You have these problems that are assigned to you, and you got kind of like an hour to go to work on it, and then a little bit more time to circle back on it. But each one of them is like a classic algorithm you have to solve. So it's a good study in kind of just algorithmic thinking and problem solving. So you guys have to do those, I think, every day, is it still?
Yes.
I think every day but Monday, right?
That's for senior. For junior,
Yeah.
it is every day.
Yeah.
Or well, I guess it's every other day. I'm sorry.
Yeah. So what was a typical, like, let's talk about junior for a second, just so people kind of understand how immersive and you know, intense the junior phase is of the program. What was the typical schedule? You guys had to be in class 9 o'clock every day, every morning. And the first thing you had to do was probably your toy problem or summary assess or a self-assessment, right, on Mondays or something like that.
Yes.
So self-assessment is a test that you take where you kind of have to evidence like all the things that you worked on last week, and you can kind of get through them, sort of show a working comprehension of them. Is that an accurate description of the self-assessment?
Yes.
And you have about an hour and a half or something to do those
I think it's an hour.
It's an hour as
on
well.
Mondays, and then you have a toy problem to do, which is like an hour. You get an hour to hack away on that, and the toy problem is here's an algorithm. You got it's a problem you got to solve. Could be. It's not usually as big a deal as like N Queens or one of those problems. Usually like, here, sort this array, backwards or whatever. Or
Find the longest palindrome in this string.
Right. Yeah. And just like kind of the problems you might get asked when you're doing a job interview, little micro mini problem kind of. So it's a good way to practice algorithmic problem solving, but also introduce you to some sort of classic problems in computing. And then you're working on a sprint. And what was the sprint? How would you describe a sprint?
I think it varies based on the sprint that you're doing. Some sprints, I guess every sprint, you're basically touching a technology that you have not touched before at all. You might get a quick lecture on some of the concepts, but it's really go and figure out bare node, go and figure out express, go and figure out whether it be jQuery with subclass dance party or in Queen's algorithm. Authentication we figured out on our own, not even with Passport or anything, just touching it.
Salting and hashing,
Right, all locally, all local algorithms. And it's a way for you to like really figure out how to problem solve on your own. Going into the documentation, making sure that you're touching the documentation and knowing what you're looking at first. I think that was something that really needs to be click in your mind first, is that realizing you can't know the full library and you never will. And you also, even if you do know a method, you need to brush up on it, because you might have an extra parameter that you didn't know about, or extra functionality that you were not aware of, that might make the problem easier for you. But
yeah. And then so the sprint is usually a 2-day cycle. You're kind of introduced to the problems in the project. You've got to add some components to the project, and they might be, introducing you to like hashing and salting, like password protection, security, that type of stuff. Or now you've got to add a front end client that does something with React or whatever. Or now you're connecting to a database on this project or whatever. So each project has 2 or 3 things in it that you got to solve in a couple of days and then turn it in. That's the sprint?
Right.
Yeah.
And then
just go ahead.
I was gonna say, and then also like we're also at the same time practicing test-driven development, because you have to pass all these tests locally.
And it's paired. You're doing pair programming the whole time. So it's you and your buddy, and you guys are. There's kind of a strict way of going about pair programming, huh? Can you describe that?
So each pair has a driver and navigator role, where the driver is the one actually with the keyboard coding, sharing their screen, and the navigator is the one, giving directions, doing research, and doing most of the, I don't want to say most of the thinking, but doing a lot of the more abstract work, while the other one is hacking away with the code.
Yeah, and it's a really interesting way of working together. Companies, it's actually a practice in the industry that people came up with in the early 2000s or late 1999s. And it was a kind of ideology in programming called extreme programming, where you had 2 developers working on the project at once. And it's kind of like you're doing code review the whole time. So the 2 pair of eyes and the 2 minds kind of constantly critiquing each other as you go through solving the problem together. We do it because it's a great way to try to help people to just acclimate towards that constant collaboration and critique, and being comfortable with that. Trying to figure out the way by which you can approach your teammate and not piss them off, and vice versa. Because programming is tricky, and it can be really, it can be humbling, in a way. Like I was saying to Alan, in the last sit down we had with the other 2 grads just now, people feel programming is a little bit like playing chess or whatever. Chess, people that practice chess, they practice it for a long time, but somehow people just sitting down to it as a hobby feel like it's a real test of their intelligence. And it is, but it's also like, if you want to be good at it, you have to practice. And to practice something, you kind of have to have a bit of humility. you've got to be able to kind of see yourself and know where your areas of growth are. And I think the only way to do that the best way to do that is with other people, because they're going to just, they're going to give you feedback about your work. And if the goal is we want the best product, then, you're going to kind of get some feedback on your work. And if there's areas for improvement, then you kind of have to acquiesce and be like, oh yeah, I got you. I'm learning. And then you fold that into your skill set. And it has nothing to do with, it has nothing to do with your talent. It has everything to do with your experience. And you're just kind of being able to practice and experience and fold things in. And sometimes other people will point things out to you and it's a learning opportunity. So that's part of the pair programming thing, that we get everybody tempered to just be able to work and be open. And so I'm glad that that's been a part of your background. I mean, it says you guys are very communicative and agreeable, and you can figure out ways to work with each other, and that is a positive. And, like I said, it can be tricky in programming because, it's an intellectual thing. So,
and I think it's even more than that, because sometimes you might feel that you're with a partner that you might be quote unquote more senior than or whatever. But I think that like the best people in the program like can steal something from the other person, whether you're more experienced or not. I think it's a way to like iterate upon each other real time. And just like create an environment where you can like, I guess, iron sharpens iron.
Yes, exactly, yeah.
And just make sure that like, because I feel like the code quality comes out just a lot better. It might feel more, you might have more friction in the moment, but it's, I think it like ultimately you come out better, better form.
So then you guys go through junior, you get to the summary assessments. It's like the all-day exam. That's fun, right? So you have to kind of then, basically you're writing an app or contributing to an app during that test, and you got to get the stuff to work kind of thing. And then you go through some verbal exams after that, and then you're into senior. And that's where, to me, is like everybody has a lot of fun. So tell me a little bit about your experience in senior, Alex. How was that compared to junior? And, tell me a little bit about some of the cool things you did in senior, the projects or the contributions you made on some of the projects you're working on there.
Yeah, so senior is built of 3 main projects. So you have your greenfield project over the course of a week, where you and a small group build something from the ground up. Legacy, where you take another previous groups, whether it be, the other team that you're working, or the other team in the same cohort or previous cohorts, you take their greenfield projects and build on top of it. And then finally thesis, where you really, with a small group, build a big app over the course of, I think it's 4 weeks, 5 weeks maybe. And so our thesis project was Make Dev, a social platform for developers to connect and share their work through.
You guys are both on that project, yeah. It was cool. I saw it at the showcase. And go ahead, tell me more about it. It's social platform for developers.
Yeah, social platform for developers to showcase their work through integrated GitHub repos. Sorry, my dog's walking around my feet.
Yep. We like dogs here.
My major contribution to that was the post creation itself, where dealing a lot with the database and kind of getting everybody's things melded together into the real meat and potatoes of Make Dev, and getting the information from all the other sources like GitHub.
Integrating GitHub API and stuff like that. Yeah, cool. And it looked cool too. That the site had a cool vibe to it. How did you guys come up with the design ideas for that site?
I think that we really like it being a app for developers and us like being developers as well. I think we wanted to make it, I guess we described it as a more hackery feel, like,
Yeah.
in the terminal, hardcore green. But I think we were able to really meld that kind of feel with still having an attractive app. I'm really like a big fan of the dark mode that we have going on. But I mean, we went through a lot of iterations. We were doing blue, we did purple. We had a lot of ideas and a lot of ways that we all liked. But I think that the end result of the green, like kind of darker feel to it, really
Yeah.
encapsulates like developers, whether they be front end or back end, and engineers themselves.
Yeah, it's that iconic kind of terminal vibe, you know,
Yeah.
that where the original terminals had the green and black. The text was in green, the background was black. It was a really cool idea. And is it live now, or is it people you got some users on it and all that?
Yeah, it's live right now. The amount of users right now, I'm not totally sure.
Haven't checked on it.
Yeah, me neither.
Yeah.
But I mean, I've been linking it everywhere.
What's the URL?
Makedev.dev.
Makedev.dev, and it's MK, right?
MKDev, like
MK.
McDir.
McDir, right? Like make directory, yeah. But it's make dir or make dev?
It's makedev.dev.
Gotcha. Yeah. Okay, cool. Yeah, it was fun. And no one's come up with that idea yet so far. Like, you know, we've now had, I don't know how many cohorts we've had graduate, but with over 400 grads, there's been a lot of projects, and some are kind of, you know, cross into the same domain. Like, you know, the scavenger hunt thing in some variation has been done a number of times as an app. They all have a different spin on them, of course. Like we had, you know, a couple of different teams do scavenger hunt dealios, but it was on for bicyclists, and then others that were like walking things or whatever. One was kind of like a zombie type thing. So all that to say, like some of the apps kind of will have similar vibes sometimes, but this was unique. I never saw that. It was a good idea, and I like that it's like, you know, I think Patrick, it might have been you saying it earlier, or it might have been Mike saying that the site. No, it might have been Mike. He was saying something about like how recruiters, you know, if they're looking to find you, they don't necessarily have a technical background. So how do you kind of help, you know, someone who's not technical take a look at you as a developer and get the most insight out of understanding what you do and where your skill set is at. It was kind of interesting vibe that way as a kind of a profiling yourself as a developer. You know, like there's other sites that you can profile yourself on. There's GitHub itself, but there's Stack Overflow. You know, if you participate in problem solving on the site, then you get kind of a stature. But, you know, kind of stops there. There's not really much of a by way of a portfolio or whatever. So it's kind of cool idea. Okay, let's see what's next. What do you guys feel like is the next step in your dreams? What do you want to do next, Alex?
So currently I'm working on a site, a portfolio site for Curry Mathern, my brother-in-law.
Nice.
He's a comic book artist, so I'm
cool.
making a site for him with Svelte. So learning that.
Hey, Jorge, one of our grads is super into Svelte. Have you met Jorge?
Yeah, that's actually how I got into Svelte. I contributed to NOLA Devs V2, which is made with Svelte.
Okay, cool. I'm glad you guys have connected on that because he was nerding out on it last year, and I was like, oh yeah, cool.
So that's what's up for me in the near future, and then just looking for a job. I really want to find something that I can, make an impact with. That's something like I mentioned, I wanted to go to college for biomedical engineering because I feel like that's a huge boon to a lot of people.
Yep.
And I want to continue to use that passion when I'm coding.
Yeah, man. Cool. And do you want to stay local, or are you? I guess you've got family here and all that, so you're not.
I'm willing to move anywhere in the United States.
Okay,
Honestly.
cool. That's have gun, will travel,
Yep.
or gun for hire, I guess is what you'd say. That's awesome. And how about you, Patrick? Are you? What's your next steps? What are you interested in?
I think, so I think this idea that I have now has formed from MakeDev. I enjoyed making like an app for developers, and I've always been interested in the terminal. Like I've always been working with like NeoVim and stuff like that, and CSH. And I also wanted to learn a new language, so I've been a new language that's like more close to like I guess C. I want to learn Rust. So right now I'm working on learning Rust, and I want to create a kind of a to-do CLI application to like for like any kind of directory. I want to like have like a CLI application that you can like write your to-do list out, and it'll save it in like a file in that directory, and allow you to like keep track of like say the to-dos. I also want to I'm still like working out all the kinks and stuff as I'm learning Rust, but like I also want to be able to have a feature where you're able to like parse through your application and look for like you have to do in your comments in a project. It can parse through those and like look for and like add those to your I guess I'm thinking of a markdown file that it'll add all of those to, and allow you to have just like a nice formatted way to see all your to-dos. Also working with also thinking of having it like I want to see like you like do to-do ls, and you can see all your to-dos in the terminal all at once.
Yeah.
And that's kind of what I've been working with while working with Rust. I think it's just like a good way to create a like a tool that I really want to use myself, and then also learn a new language I was interested in.
Yeah, good for you, man, for taking that on. That's awesome. I like it that it's command line oriented. That's cool. And let's see what else. I guess that's all the questions I had in terms of what you want to do next. I think, like I was saying to the other folks I was just talking to, I really admire you both for getting through the program and graduating. It is a tough program, and I'm a big fan whenever I meet someone that's graduated from the program. I was saying it's like meeting a Jedi, you know. You're just like, whoa, you got through this program, man, awesome. Or a Shaolin monk or whatever, you know. I feel like we need to have like one of those arm tattoos that they have from the Shaolin. Yeah. Halibot tattoo or something. So anyway, you're both awesome. Thanks for spending a little time with me, and we'll catch you out there in the development scene here in New Orleans.
For sure. This was fun.
Absolutely.
All right,
Thank you.
Take it easy.